The midday sun scorched the arid landscape, casting long shadows over the hills and valleys of Judea. Dust swirled in the air as a band of rugged, battle-hardened warriors made their way toward a grand estate that sprawled across the horizon. At their helm was David, a charismatic leader and future king, whose reputation for courage and loyalty was known throughout the land. Though he lived as a fugitive, pursued by King Saul, David had taken it upon himself to protect the shepherds and flocks that roamed these hills, ensuring peace and safety in the region. Among those who had benefited from David's protection was Nabal, a wealthy but notoriously arrogant landowner. Nabal's estate was the epitome of prosperity, its fields abundant and its flocks numerous. Yet, for all his wealth, Nabal was as mean-spirited as he was rich. When David sent messengers to request a small token of gratitude for the vigilance he and his men had shown, Nabal's response was as dismissive as it was insulting. "Who is this David?" Nabal sneered, his voice heavy with disdain. "Many servants are breaking away from their masters these days. Why should I take my bread and water and the meat I've prepared for my shearers and give it to men coming from who knows where?" The messengers returned to David, their faces dark with indignation as they relayed Nabal's scornful reply. David's anger flared instantly. This was no mere affront. It was a direct challenge to his honor and the sacrifices his men had made. Fury burned in his heart, and he swore vengeance. Strapping on his sword, he ordered his men to prepare for battle. Together, they set out for Nabal's estate, determined to wipe out every male in his household. Meanwhile, word of David's wrath reached Abigail, Nabal's wife. Unlike her husband, Abigail was a woman of profound wisdom and grace, qualities that set her apart. She had long endured Nabal's folly, but she knew that this time his reckless arrogance had gone too far. Disaster loomed, and she couldn't stand idly by. Without hesitation, Abigail sprang into action. She commanded her servants to gather provisions: 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 prepared sheep, roasted grain, 100 cakes of raisins, and 200 cakes of pressed figs. These were loaded onto donkeys, and Abigail set out to intercept David and his men before they reached her home. The path was rugged and the journey urgent. As Abigail approached, she saw David and his warriors descending a hill, their faces grim with resolve. Dismounting quickly, Abigail prostrated herself before David, bowing low in a gesture of deep humility. Her voice, though trembling, carried the weight of her conviction. "My lord," she began, "let the blame fall on me alone. Please allow your servant to speak to you. Pay no attention to that wicked man, Nabal. He is, as his name suggests, a fool. But I, your servant, did not see the men my lord sent." David halted, his fiery rage momentarily checked by the sight of Abigail's humility and the earnestness in her voice. She continued, her tone pleading yet firm. "Now, my lord, as surely as the Lord your God lives, and as you live, since the Lord has kept you from bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hands, may your enemies and all who seek to harm you be like Nabal, and let this gift, which your servant has brought to my lord, be given to the men who follow you." She lifted her eyes to meet David's, her expression earnest and resolute. "Please forgive your servant's presumption. The Lord your God will certainly make a lasting dynasty for my lord, because you fight the Lord's battles. Let no wrongdoing be found in you as long as you live. And when the Lord has fulfilled every good thing he promised concerning you and has appointed you ruler over Israel, my lord will not have on his conscience the burden of needless bloodshed or of having avenged himself." David stood in silence, her words sinking deep into his heart. He saw in her not only wisdom, but also courage and an unwavering sense of justice. Slowly, his rage melted away. He nodded, his voice calm but full of gratitude. "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Israel, who sent you today to meet me," David said. "May you be blessed for your good judgment and for keeping me from bloodshed this day and from avenging myself with my own hands. Go home in peace. I have heard your words and granted your request." Relief washed over Abigail as David accepted her gifts and called off his men. She returned home, her heart heavy but grateful for what had been averted. That night, Nabal held a lavish feast, drunk and oblivious to the danger he had narrowly escaped. Abigail waited until morning, when he was sober, to recount the events of the previous day. As she spoke, Nabal's face grew pale, his body stiffened, and he collapsed. He had suffered a stroke, and 10 days later, he died. When David heard of Nabal's death, he remembered Abigail's grace and wisdom. Moved by her character, he sent messengers to propose marriage. Though grieving for her late husband, Abigail recognized the opportunity to align herself with a man of vision and integrity. She accepted David's proposal, becoming his wife and a trusted counselor during his rise to power and reign as king. Thus, through her courage, humility, and wisdom, Abigail not only saved her household, but also secured a legacy as one of the most remarkable women in biblical history.